Folks, welcome back to the channel. What we got going on today is spray foaming the roof deck. Guys doing it are local crew out of Viola, not too far from here. And I'm going to try to show you some of what's going on, but technically this stuff kind of puts off some chemicals you shouldn't be breathing for an extended period. So I don't know how much footage I'm going to get. And it's pretty messy, so I don't really want to leave the camera sitting up there unattended. But we'll get some footage of it, and I'll kind of talk you through the process, and maybe we can get one of these guys to get inside the trailer and explain how this system works. All right, so Shannon from North Arkansas Spray Foam is going to kind of explain to us a little bit about what this piece of equipment is, how it works, and what they're doing to get this foam through the hose and into the house to insulate the house. So, if I don't know where you might want to start with the.
We just have our two different products. We've got our, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but this is our isocyanate. Of course, we just call it ISO for short because I know I butcher that all the time. And then we have a resin side. So or we'll shorten it to A side and B side. Our A side is basically like a best way I've had it described to me is like Gorilla Glue on steroids, and it's what allows our product to bond to whatever it is that we're spraying. B side, they each have to have their separate lines to run, and then they'll run through the hose, and then they mix right here in this chamber. Because if it was to mix before then,
Plug up your line.
you'd have a mess. So there's a chamber in here, and I can show you kind of what it looks like and the where it mixes at. See, here's a tip to the gun that you see that it comes out through.
Yesterday you said you were changing tips out to a bigger size. Are the orifices are in like thousandths of an inch, or is it just a number size?
If you just looked at them with a naked eye, I mean, you really couldn't tell unless you were just, it's just this hole right here.
And it changes the quantity of material and the size of the pattern that you're putting out depending on what you're trying to cover.
Depending on what your pressure is, for your O1, you'll have a, I don't know, about a 3 or 4 inch cone. You'll spray an O2, you can have, you know, a 6 to 8 to 10 inch, depending on what your distance is as well.
So it's like a spray gun for paint,
Kind
you know.
of. Yeah.
And is it equal portions of A and B that's going through there, or is it?
It's equal, because if you were to have more pressure on one side than the other, then you're going to know it, and it's not going to spray right.
And it's a pump, and then air is what's used to put the material on what you're trying to insulate.
Yes. The pressure is what pushes the product through the line to get to the end of the gun. But this is a little dirty. I hadn't cleaned it yet, but you can kind of see and why it's so critical on your pressures, and which your temperature doesn't affect this aspect of it, but it can, and why your pressure would need to be even, because this sits inside of here. And you got 2 chambers that come on either side, and this is where it mixes.
Oh, okay.
This little hole, and then it shoots straight out. So if your pressure is higher on one side, it's going to force it to come through on the other side. So you have to be even for it to come out.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to come out. If not, you're going to have a world of trouble. You're going to have to tear your head apart and redo it.
And
it's going to what we do, what we call a crossover,
Yeah.
and
It'll-
it'll mix within
in
on
the
one
gun.
side or the other.
And mess your gun up and mess up what's coming out.
Yeah, and it won't come through.
Yeah.
It'll just stop.
How many PSI is the system operating at?
Well, my spray pressure is, I like to spray anywhere between, and depending on what I'm spraying, 1,000 to 1,200. I don't like to get over 1,200, just for me being able to control the product. I like to, and some people like to spray at a higher pressure than I do, but I like to be able to control, you know, what it is that I'm doing and that I'm spraying, and to make it look like I want it to look. I want it to look right. I want it to look neat. I know most of our foam is going to be covered up, but until it is covered up, I don't want the homeowner coming in like, well, that looks like crap, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I spray my pressure a little bit lower than some people do. And when you are spraying, some people will watch the foam, or like the other guy, he watches his wet line and all that. I have to listen to it so I know what it is that I'm doing.
And
But
so are closed cell versus open cell, is one side of the product the same and the other is different, or is it two completely different?
No, A side is going to be the same, pretty much the same for every type of foam that you spray.
It's just whatever the activator is, the surfactant you were talking about that that makes it go off.
This is what changes whatever foam it is that you're spraying. I'm told that there are only 4 manufacturers in the world that make A-side. Now, it may be different companies that will get it or whatever, but there's a limited amount of companies that actually produce this and manufacture this. The B-side is, it's getting to be where we see more and more companies that make the product now.
People hear, you know, closed cell foam, open cell foam. And so the question is, you know, is it a mix ratio? Is it a different component? Is it, you know, what makes the two react differently when you're putting it on? Is it in this piece of equipment, or is it in these barrels that changes it from closed cell to open cell?
No, it's within the barrels. And then two, and the way you spray them is totally different as well. Your B-side, some people, like I said, everybody sprays different. Some people will do not the same, but similar to like painting a car. They'll do like a 50% overlay. But like I said, I have to listen to it. I have to hear it in order to know how I'm spraying.
And when you're spraying, you can definitely hear a difference in tone of where you are on the product. If you're going over another layer that's already expanded, or, you know, if it's in the product. I mean, it was interesting because after you said that, I started listening to it, and you can really hear the difference.
Yeah, I can tell by the sound if it's, and watching it react, what it's doing and what I need to do as far as my pressure or my temperature. If I'm spraying too low of a temperature, it'll create like a air pocket or a void behind it. If I'm spraying too hot, I'll have shrinkage on the sides. So I can kind of watch that as well, and hear it as well too. But yeah, they'll both come through the pumps. Of course, you can see all the lines that they run. They run all the way through. Well, they run through the reactor, and this is where we set our pressures on each side that we're spraying, which is gauged by this pressure gauge right here. Of course, we can adjust it right here how we like, and this one, depending on how it's reacting, what tip I'm using, I'll either spray anywhere from like 375 to 400, or just a little over 400. And then these two will anywhere, like I said, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200. I don't like to get over 1,200 because then it really forces it out. Some people do. But
Seems like you'd have a lot of overspray and a lot more wasted
Well,
product at a higher pressure.
to me, if I sprayed over 1,200 psi on my different products, then I have to. It wears me out faster because I have to move my arm a whole lot faster
Yeah.
than what I do. But I can kind of, with the way I spray, I can move it a little bit slower and I can control it a whole lot better so it lays as flat as possible, but still have the yield that I'm looking for.
And so this unit is giving you your material at the pressure you want, but it's also setting your mix ratio, or is that purely controlled by the gun?
No, that's just in the gun, and but it can affect, like if I'm running, 100 pounds or 200 pounds over on one side or the other, then it's forcing the other side to kind of not really compensate, but it's going to create issues, down the road. So I like to have them as even as I possibly can. If you're running a little bit over on one side or the other, it's not really going to hurt it, and I say over like 50 pounds, or you can go up to 100 pounds, but I like to have them as even as possible.
Yeah.
So I don't have no issues, down the road.
Cool.
But yeah, it's when I first started, I started looking at where it mixes and finding that little hole coming in. It's the same on either side. But it mixes right in this chamber and comes out on this end, which comes out through your tip. Even with the products being cold, like they are, if I was to take a cup of this and a cup of this and pour it together, you would see it react.
And cold it's like 72 degrees outside right now, but you said that you normally run this at what, 130?
Yeah, our hose temperature, like I've been spraying this today or yesterday and the day before at 130 degrees. My barrel temperatures, they recommend having your barrel temperatures at 80 degrees. You'll get better yield and more board feet out of your product. If you keep your barrels at 80 degrees. But we got belt heaters for like in the winter time that kind of helps us.
Well, and plus you got the AC heater unit in the ceiling. And I'm sure that quite a bit of heat comes off of just that generator running.
Yeah. Even with the door shut, if I wasn't to run the AC like in the summertime, it would be pretty warm in here. So there's a lot of times we'll leave the doors open, or if it's really hot, then I will run the AC in here because, if you need to take a break or whatever, you come in here and kind of cool off a little bit. But yeah, it and this and people may be wondering about these lines here. This is a recert line, so you can heat your product up that way as well. You can which turn the knobs like this allows it to come through the lines. But if I was to have it on, I wanted to heat one side or the other. Of course, my machine's not on, but I can turn my barrel heaters on, and I can flip this one side or the other, whichever one I want to heat up, and it'll recert. It won't go through the line, but it'll come through these recert lines, and it pumps out of here, it comes back into here, and it just kind of recirculates that to kind of heat that up as well. So there's another, like the initial, I guess you could call it the initial heating it up, or we have belt heaters, as well. Some companies have like a barrel blanket that wraps the entire barrel and will heat the entire product. Ours will go on the bottom, so it kind of heats the bottom up. where the pump is taking it out of, and so as it comes down, it it heats it up as well.
And I just noticed that this is a Graco product.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two Graco airless paint sprayers sitting in the garage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I call this one our digital trailer. The other one's our analog trailer.
Yeah.
And then this machine too, like I said, Yersti is one man can operate it because it keeps track of your gallons of your barrels. And once it gets down to 5 gallons, the machine will shut down. What that keeps it from doing is these pumps, once the material gets down and there's nothing to pump through, they'll start to do what we call jackhammer. They'll just pump really fast, and you try not to let them do that because it can run your pump. It also gets air in the line,
Yeah.
which kind of messes you up as well. So it will shut down at 5 gallons on each one of them, and so then you can come out, you can swap over
Yeah.
to a new barrel. But if they don't stop it like they're supposed to, it could end up crossing over in the gun. Then you got to be down for a little bit of time
To clean it up.
rebuild
Yeah.
your head, clean it up, and get it back to where you can spray with it again.
Cool.
The gist of the machine.
Well, interesting. So now maybe people know something they didn't know.
I hope so.
Well, thank you. And I just.
I didn't drill any holes over here because I already filled that up with that great stuff. I did that from the outside when I could still access it before they sheathed it. So it's filled up to where you see this stuff coming out up here.
Oh, okay.
This is another one of those things that people never think about. They just move into a house, turn the light switch on, flush the toilet, everything works. All of the stuff that goes into building a house, it's crazy. Now that outside of that is part of the porch that's going to get done, if that makes a difference.
Well, I'm trying to keep it off the porch itself.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'd probably be hard to get off of broom finished concrete.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna show y'all the completed insulation job. The original plan was 7 inches of open cell foam under the roof deck, and we ended up with at least 7 inches, but I'd say average we're probably closer to 8, based on just the fill. Now there's places, this section under here is a lot more because there was a new guy trying out his skill. The more experienced sprayer or installer is a little bit more consistent in his thickness of the application, but it has really quietened it down in here because, you know, it's not just metal on OSB. And of course we're in a shoulder season where it's cooler at night and warmer in the day, and the temperature has been very, very consistent in here. You know, it's not spikes like it was before we had the roof on, or the metal on the roof, and now it's even more stable than it was. Now, one of the things that people are a lot of times concerned about with this is the off-gassing, and probably for the first 72 hours you could smell it. It was, you know, dropping in intensity over that entire time. Now there's barely any smell in here, but we've had all of the windows open and all of the doors open and the skylights open and letting this air out because we're getting ready for drywall. And this is our attic space now, kind of a bonus bedroom, but you can see it's pretty consistent. You know, you end up with a lot better coverage than you do with bat or something like that. You know, some of the other spray products,
cellulose and denim fiber and different things that you can spray on seem to work well, but you run the risk of sagging over time. You know, gravity takes its toll, and this stuff is, once it's in place unless something physical or mechanical happens to it. So now all of our insulation was upstairs with one exception. Well, technically two, but inside the house one, because this is potentially living space over the garage. We went ahead and made sure to seal this off, because you've got to prevent any chance of exhaust fumes getting into your living space. And so we went ahead and spray foamed all of the stairs and the little entryway. Primary reason I wanted the stairs done is temperature differential. You know, if it's cold in the garage when you open the door, you don't want it to infiltrate upstairs, and the same thing if it's hot outside, you open the garage door, you don't want the heat to get into the upstairs portion as much as possible. Now, we also did something some people might think is a little weird, but we had the deck, roof deck on the back porch insulated as well. And the reason we did this is because since everything was open, it was an opportunity, and our plan is to make this back section of the porch a four-season porch at some point. And rather than having to tear the ceiling off and come back and insulate later, it was just a lot easier. And based on the way things are going, I'd say probably a lot more cost effective than it will be in a few years to come back and do that. So I think it was probably the right decision, and it only added, I think, $1,000 to the total insulation cost. So not too bad. But hope you found the information useful. You know, I think based on the way that it's affected the interior comfort of the structure without even having the air conditioning or heat or anything running, I think it's going to have been a worthwhile investment. But thanks for watching, and y'all have a good day.